Assalamualaikum to Madam. Today, we from Group 8 will be presenting our infographic poster on the prohibition of synthetic drugs used in Malaysia. So our group consists of 5 students, which are Zinira, Aina, Atika, Amira, and Adriana. My name is Nur Atika with metric number 272805. So I will start our presentation by presenting on my part, which is the definition of synthetic drugs. In general, drugs can be divided into 3 categories. Firstly, traditional drugs such as marijuana and cannabis. Secondly, synthetic drugs such as ecstasy and methamphetamine. Thirdly, a new type of drugs which is a combination of synthetic drugs and traditional drugs that is known as new psychoactive substance or NPS. Flakka is an example of NPS. Next, in Malaysia, we are forbidden by the law from using synthetic drugs. Using synthetic drugs can be considered as committing an offense, and if found guilty, can be punished by the law. Normally, drugs means chemical substance that can affect our physical and mental health in a negative way, while synthetic means some things that are made from synthesis, which to imitate a normal or original products. In other words, synthetic drugs are fake drugs. According to Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation, which is a foundation that helps people who are affected with drugs or alcohol, synthetic drugs means drugs that are created using man-made chemicals in order to mimic or strengthen the effects of traditional drugs. Synthetic drugs are also known as club drugs or also known as designer drugs. In Malaysia, methamphetamine, Aramin 5, ketamine, and meth pills are the 4 most popular and demanded synthetic drugs among drug abusers in Malaysia, according to Malaysia Country Report on Drug Issues in 2019.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Zina binti Muhammad Nur with metric number 26798. I will talk about when the synthetic drug use become an offense. First and foremost, as we know, drugs is our number one enemy in Malaysia. Possession of it will be considered as a serious offense. Therefore, Dangerous Drug Act 1952 has provided some rules to be followed, which is first, Section 12, Subsection 2 emphasizes that no one should in possession of any synthetic drugs unless he is allowed to do so. Second, Section 13A, B and C stress that no one who are not medical practitioner or a registered dentist use or provide any premise to administer any synthetic drugs. Third, Section 15, Subsection 1A and Section 15, Subsection 2 stated that no one should consume or keep any synthetic drugs by either eating, chewing, or introducing into their body in any ways. Fourth, Section 37D read to any person who keep the synthetic drugs with them, they will be considered as in possession of it unless it was proven otherwise. Fifth, Section 39A, Subsection 1 and RSTUX and ZA applicable for person who in possession of 5 grams or more but less than 30 grams of amphetamine, methamphetamine or any other synthetic drugs or combination of the synthetic drugs. 6. Section 39A, Subsection 2 practicable for the offence which is not punishable with death, where every person may be found guilty if there is 30 grams or more of the synthetic drugs I mentioned earlier. 7. Section 39B, Subsection 1A, B and C section and Section 2 of Dangerous Drug Act 1952 specifically for the trafficking offence, since the definition of the trafficking offence including the act of manufacturing and keeping the synthetic drugs.
Assalamualaikum and good day. My name is Nur Amira binti Razi and my matrix number is 272687. I will proceed to elaborate about offence of synthetic drug usage by presenting about the statistic of drug abusers and addicts that collected in January 2020 until June 2020. This data was collected by the National Anti-Drug Agency under the Ministry of Home Affairs Office. In total, there were 95,505 of drug addicts and abusers was caught within those 6 months. 92,384 individuals from the total are number of synthetic drug abusers and addicts. That is really high numbers. Among the categories of synthetic drugs type that they took are amphetamine type stimulants, opiates, psychotropic pills, and also opium. It is sad to see or say that from the total of 95,505 individuals, there were children and adolescents that they are under the age of 18 years old but involved in the offense. The highest number of drug abusers and addicts are from the group of youth. It is heartbreaking to see our 61,851 youth involved as drug addicts and abusers. The youth are nation's successor that are responsible to develop our country. But this high of numbers is heartbreaking.
My name is Noina Kamila binti Zalizat, 268097. I'll be explaining about the criminal offence of prohibition of synthetic drug use. Malaysia's national drug policy enforced prohibitionist strategy with the aim of making the country drug-free. It is provided that one of the issues and challenges faced by the government of Malaysia to combat drug use is the emergence of new drugs or new psychoactive drugs, or commonly known as new synthetic drugs. The issue with synthetic drugs is that it is very complex and can be considered as a chronic and relapsing disease. Generally, drugs can affect the consumer's brain and can influence their thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Synthetic drugs with chemically processed drug created to cause and enhance effects on the user poses a much serious threat to the health and safety to the individual, to the family, to the community, and the country. Now, why is it an offence? The reason of implementation of prohibition of synthetic drug use is because synthetic drugs are produced by the mixing of chemicals in which creates a lasting and permanent effect on the consumer's brain, in which conventional methods like therapy to cure drug addicts are no longer an effective approach. Based on the chemistry department, amongst the materials used to produce these synthetic drugs are from the cations and phenylethylamine group. It is provided that the excessive activity of nerves created by these synthetic drugs may cause anxiety or other psychological problems or disorders. The implementation of prohibition of synthetic drug use aimed to prevent this from causing long-term and incurable effects on the consumers. Another reason for the implementation of prohibition of synthetic drug use is the harm reduction, which is to minimize the physical, psychological, social, economic, and harm to individual, family, and the community for drug abuse. As have been explained, the effects of synthetic drugs are more dangerous and creates a permanent effect on the consumer. The prohibition of synthetic drugs use intends to ensure harm is minimized and complements other aims of the national drug policy, which is to minimize the possibilities of other criminal acts.
Okay, so next we will focusing on the offences punishment. But first of all, my name is Adriana and my metric number is 273002. To start off, there are about 7 sections to be discussed. But to make it easy for you, we will categorize it into 3 categories, which are first focusing on the punishment for possessing these synthetic drugs, and secondly, we'll be focusing on the offences of administrating these synthetic drugs, and last but not least, we'll be focusing on trafficking these synthetic drugs, and trafficking also also means manufacturing. To start off with the punishment for possessing these synthetic drugs, there are about 3 sections to be talked about. First of all is section 12, where it mentioned the restriction for importing and exporting these synthetic drugs. And by virtue of subsection 3, it mentioned that any person who possess or have a custody or control of these synthetic drugs, they are liable to be fined for a price not exceeding 1,000 ringgit, or to an imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years, or both. While as for section 39A subsection 1 and 39A subsection 2, it solely focuses on the amount that you possess, the amount of drugs that you possess. Therefore, the larger the amount you have possessed, the larger the punishments that you have to bear. And by virtue of section 39A subsection 1, you are possessing 2 grams or more but not less than 5 grams of drugs, then you are liable to be imprisoned for terms not less than 2 years. It must be more than 2 years but not exceeding 5 years, and also you are liable to be whipping, which amounts not less than 3 strokes but not more than 9 strokes. So it can be in between 3 or 9 strokes. And by virtue of section 39A subsection 2, it's focusing on the possessing these synthetic drugs with a total weight of 5 grams or more. And here you are liable to be imprisoned for a life terms, or you could be imprisoned for a term not less than 5 years. So it must be more than 5 years. And also you are liable to be whipping, which must not be less than 10 strokes. So it must be more than 10 strokes. And the next offenses that we are to look at were the administration of the synthetic drugs. And by virtue of section 13, it mentions about keeping or using these synthetic drugs for unlawful reasons. So if you were to keep and use these synthetic drugs without unlawful reason, you are liable to be fined not exceeding 10,000 ringgit, or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years, or it could be both. And by section 14 subsection 1, it's focusing on the administration of the synthetic drugs, i.e. The premises, if you were to have one, or you were to keep these synthetic drugs in a certain places, then you are liable to be fined not exceeding 10,000 ringgit, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or both. And by virtue of section 15, it's focusing on self-administration or for your self-consumptions. You use it for your own pleasure, maybe your own entertainment, then you are liable to be fined not exceeding 5,000 ringgit, or to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 2 years. And last but not least is the heartful of punishment. And if you were caught of trafficking these drugs, or maybe you are caught of manufacturing these synthetic drugs, then you are punishable by death. And that's all for me. Thank you.